Thank you so much for coming in and confirming that you can hear me. So today we're going to talk about the digital transformation. Deep Impact is the model in my book, and I'm excited to share with you and decisive leadership in the turbulent time. So before we start into the session, let's just go back and think about in 1997. There that was the year of the pivotal year when McKinsey introduced a phase that could really shape the corporate world. They declared the war for talent. And their published research really highlight a looming challenge for organizations worldwide. And this research really stay relevant even in our world today. It's really talk about how critical, like there's a critical shortage of future talents among people between 35 and 45 years old. And so let's just dive in. So why am I talking about this? The reason I'm talking about this is because you probably can see on the screen there has been a lot of events happening to us here over the years. Since then, there's complexity of our global economy. There's a rising in competition from SMEs and startups that really challenge how do we navigate the digital transformation and how do we strive for decisive leadership. And there's also the challenge from having sophisticated talent requirement as we're going into that digital transformation. We don't just need one type of skill set, but we need different deep kind of skill set. And for companies, the smaller companies in the workplace, we need it more than ever. And now let's reflect on like these significant events that you've seen here, from the tech crash in 2000 to the rise of AI now. And each event really tested our resilience and adaptivity. So I can tell you that much. Like put in the chat if you can, let me know, or even like a Q&A too, because that's where I can see now. Let me know who have difficulties during COVID. Like I know that I was working in one of the big four management consulting firm, and everything stopped. We had to move everything online, and suddenly, you know, we I learned very quickly. I have to learn how do we give visual presentation, how do we advise clients without that face to face, and that was a lot of learning. Um, so so with that, let's just think about later on. I will continue to unfold the deep impact model, but for us, if you're a leader in your field, you probably know that it's very important more than ever now to we need to navigate that uncertainty. We need to leverage our digital tools, but we also need to really be thinking strategically so that we can drive our organization forward. And that's what the deep impact model helped to create, that engaging, that personalized, that educations and transformative experience. So my book is releasing tomorrow. So if you want to send me an email, I'll tell my email later, but we can also think about how we can, uh, we can get you that copy. So as a result of all of the events that you've seen here, you can see that there's a unprecedented, like it's a big change in our world today. I can't really talk, but let's just think about what are some of the changes, like work from home after COVID. Um, I saw you, Sasani. Your question is how can leaders effectively communicate and drive digital transformation initiative in the face of resistance and uncertainty? This is definitely a great question. So let's come back to it in a little bit later. But let's think about working from home, and that have changed, and that's to your point, Sasani, like it's even make it even harder for us to have that effective communications. How do we be visible? How do we bring teams together? And then you see that great resignations, millions of people have left their jobs, and they're seeking a more kind of work-life balance and fulfilling environment. And then you'll also see that quiet quitting when employees start to put minimum effort, or starting to think about job satisfactions, and how, as the leader, how do you motivate and retain their teams to work together, especially in post-COVID environment. There's other things too, but you can see here, but obviously I can tell you that much. Like, continue with the story. I was working in a really large project for an international venture fund, and it was in the midst of COVID, and the culture was very different. It was a company in Asia, and the chairman just wanted me to be home like right now, and I couldn't really get there because it take like time to get the travel permits. I was having my permanent resident then, and now I'm American, but everything took time. And by the time I get the permit, uh, it was very difficult because then the government is closing the gates between the two countries, especially in Vietnam, because a lot of families can only get into the airplane when you have a very um, family emergency. Then there were a lot of emergency back then. So obviously this is why I'm excited to introduce that deep impact model, because it's really talk about how do we create comprehensive changes in our life can change overnight, as you can see in the COVID world. So, this is a little bit about me. My name is Ava, and I have background in management consulting. I work for various organizations from international startups to enterprises. I have a privilege of learning design thinking innovation at Stanford, and I work on large digital transformations before, and also really focused on big digital transformation in when I was working in one of the big four firm. And right now, I'm specialized in leveraging AI and technology to improve processes, help small and medium business to increase sales, and while making employees more satisfied and the customers also happy. So as you can see, I recently have done my TEDx talk, and I'd love you to check it out. I'll give you the link at the end as well, and I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what you think about this. But let's come back. Oh, yes. So this is the book I'm publishing tomorrow. So send me an email later if you're interested to be the first one who can read about this book. Um, so um, so that's a little bit about me. But for today, let's just really dive into like what problems organizations are struggling. There's the goal for today is really how we use the deep impact framework, and I'll give you some examples to really think about how we can approach digital transformation in a more comprehensive way. But one fact is that you probably know, like by 2026, there $3.4 trillion will be spent on digital transformation. Yet, uh, according to one of the survey from one of the management consulting firm, there's 70% of companies still struggle to deliver values in the digital age by providing that value. You see a lot of adoptions in in tools and technology in digital tools, but yet how and also a lot of companies have top tier talents, but yet we're still facing a lot of challenge in delivering values to customers. So so write out in the chat for me, what are some of the other digital transformation challenge that you experience in organizations? Like, consider knowing this fact. Actually, write in the Q&A session for me so I can see it. Anybody have no one? Like, so you don't have any challenge in your organization? Okay, so I'm gonna go forward with this, but feel free to continue to put in the chat how we can really see that challenge, or like in a Q&A. Actually, Q&A is better. So as we're going into let's we move forward. Let's just talk about some of the lessons from the giant tech. I introduce Kodak and also introduce that Microsoft example. Uh, and as you can see, right, like Kodak uh, have been a failed experiment with digital transformation. And why is that? Why did Kodak fail? Like, anybody have experiment with Kodak before? If you really know the story and if you really live in that region, you can see that Kodak really prioritized that short-term gains and investing heavily in film despite the rise of digital photography. And I can tell you many other example like Blockbuster versus Netflix and things like that. But it's the same thing, right? Like when companies don't really change fast enough, especially with the digital where especially when we're in the digital age, then we face with uh, a lot of setback. And also, Kodak ignored that internal and external warnings about the digital shift, and the culture was very resistant. And so, because of that, there's a need for adaptivity and diverse perspective. And it's really have a reminder for us that there's no company immune to disruption. Even the best company working well right now could be getting into that issues if we're not continuously learning. And as you can see, when you think about if Kodak have really advocate for that change, if the company really hears some voices, that might be a different story. So now let's transition to a success case so far. Microsoft is still in work, in the digital, the forefront of the digital transformation today. And the company successfully navigate that disruptive change under their new leadership. And as you can see, they're bringing that holistic approach. It's very similar to my model, but if you can really observe them, you can see that they're starting with really integrating that critical thinking, that creativity, that collaboration and communication. And that is definitely a part of the deep impact framework that I'm going to share with you. And they also have some success in cloud and AI integration. As you can see that the leadership visions for the cloud computing and AI integration have been essential for the transformation. But it wasn't just about adopting technology, but it's really about position them in the tech world, but serving a purpose for their customers. And and how do they do that? They really focus on that customer centric approach as well. So they pivot really quickly, they maintain relevant and continue to grow. So imagine being a part of this movement. Employees can really embrace that growth mindset, shifting from a comparative silo structure and really collaborate and working on the purpose of using design thinking to really talk about continuous improvement. So this is why decisive leadership is so important. We need decisive leaders this day to really have that strategic vision and can inspire the entire organization to achieve that greatness. So to be a decisive leader, one have to understand adaptivity and why does it matters. The reason why it matters is because if you really think about nowadays, we need so many different kind of skill set. We need have technical skill set to learn and to grow. Like that's required growth mindset. We also need different skill set to really embrace that change. Like COVID happened and changed our life instantly. AI happened, but what else could be happening in our world? So in order to really do that, we need to survive, not just about survive, but we really think about growth. How do we really being adaptable so that the organization can grow? And that's where the deep impact models I'm going to show you later to really incorporate a lot of that critical thinkings. And I can tell you this much. Um, think about deep impact is like a river that really adapts to that surrounding. Think about that visions, like creating that compass so that leaders know exactly, not exactly, can still be adapt, but have a clear visions and have a thoughtful strategy so that they're not really getting into um, failures like Kodak anymore. Um, So put it on the Q&A section for me and see where some example that you feel like your organizations adapt very well. So here's one of the example. I'm going to go quickly, but this is one of a client of mine is the C level, and he come from a very technical background, and he really focused on just rushing into digital transformation. So really developing tools, but really forgetting about everyone's in the process. So the tool was developed really fast. Within 1 month, we have an AI tool, but then it couldn't be used because then it really didn't really serve a purpose for the customers and clients, and it leads to all kind of bad results. So this is why when we're integrating that growth and flux mindset with deep impact models and part here. So this is where you can really read more about in my book, but there's a 10-step here, and I love to get you there. But here's an example, of how we do that with Mary. She is managing general manager, overseeing about 200 people in her organization within a large enterprises, uh, and and she really done her work as a leader. She used that deep impact. She talked about how do we discover first, how do we look inside. And she, when she first came, she was very stressed, but then she's starting to really talk with me and starting to understand that self-awareness. And Mary is trying to listen to her teams and bringing the team together. She engaged, and she helped the teams, all her leaders, to create a champion group. And with that, they're starting to share their success stories, and then Mary can amplify those success stories within teams, and she really inspired the team with that clear, compelling vision, and she make it very clear, and she clarify for a team. And she, at the beginning, they meet daily just to make sure they understand it, and also really help the leaders in her teams to tackle any challenge that they are facing with. And at the end, they really save about $1 million 6 months in. So I'll leave you with this. This is what you can start today holistically. Uh, in order to lead an organization, be a decisive leader, start now and start with yourself. So connect with your purpose, understanding what your strengths and passions, and continuous learning new skill sets, making sure that you're not just learning the hard skill like technology, but also the hard skills. It's combining that technical and that emotional intelligence to help your team. And self-awareness is so important. This is something that you cannot contract out, no matter how much you read. It is really about the day-to-day practice, is the discipline. So it's an active uh, fight. It's really not a passive journey. So put in the work tonight, get out the time, and sit with yourself, see what you're hearing and seeing in the system, including inside of you. And we're moving toward managing to coaching. So as you're a manager, as you're a leader, learn how to coach, and then or hire a coach so that they can really help you to amplify those and continues to learn. So that's it. That's what my talk is here, and I'm hoping to launch it today. But send me an email, and in at info at ava.ai, or follow me, and then I can also let me just see. Uh, Maybe I can also drop in my uh, my link here. So give me some thoughts so far. Anybody have any questions? Put in the Q&A for me. Well, thank you so much for asking questions. But start with yourself. Look at the last slide that I show you, and really look within. Then we can, reach out to me, and then we can talk more.